Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to move your image onto your sheet of watercolor paper. You should have one final sheet of watercolor paper in your supply kit that is large. It's the same size as the paper that we did the portrait on. This piece of paper is what you're going to do your final project on. So one option for you if you have a printer at home is to take your image and to go ahead and print it on a piece of paper. So if you do this option, you do want to make sure that you print your entire image so that it fills the sheet of paper, because this sheet of paper will then pretty much fill the sheet of watercolor paper that we have to work with. Then what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the transfer paper that we have in our kit. Remember, that stuff works darker side down onto my sheet of watercolor paper. I'm going to put my photo down over the top, a little bit of paper clip or some tape to hold it in place, and I'm going to trace it onto my sheet of watercolor paper. So if you happen to have a printer at home or have access to a printer, this is one way to go. If you're coming in for hybrid, I will print the image for you and you can work with that image that way. If you don't have access to a printer, no worries. We are going to use the rest of that sheet of tracing paper. Remember, we use this for the still life and the simple fruit. So here's what you're gonna do. You are going to find the photo that you are going to use for your project. So here's my photograph. I'm going to download it because it's not on this computer. It's on a different computer. Yours is probably already on the computer, so you're set. Then what I'm gonna do, because I can't use this photo as it is, even if I open it now in files, it's too small, right? It's too tiny. That's not gonna fill my sheet of watercolor paper. It's itty bitty. I need it to fill the sheet. So here's how I'm gonna get it big enough to fill the sheet. I'm gonna go to Google Slides. And I'm gonna open up a Google Slides presentation. I'm gonna just do a blank one. And I'm going to insert my image into this Google Slide presentation. So insert image. I just downloaded it to this computer. You probably can find the image in your drive because you turned it into Google Classroom. Here we have my photograph, so I'm just gonna double click it. And ta-da, here it is in Google Slides. It's still too small because even if I present it, it's only gonna be as tall as the screen. So what I need to do is turn this image on its side, which I get with this dial at the top. So I'm gonna sideways. If you have a landscape image, it will just come up this way. I am then going to push it as far as I can to the corner, and I'm going to make it as big as I can, as carefully as possible so that I don't warp the photo, okay? I don't want it to get funky. I want it to look normal. So now you're saying to yourself, but Mrs. Hughes, this is still not that big. No, it's not until I hit up here, this button, the present button. Now when I present, what happens is, ta-da, my image now fills my screen. So I can now take my watercolor paper and I can say, yes, that is going to fit. And what I'm gonna do is grab a little piece of tape and use my tracing paper right here. And I'm going to trace. So I like to put a little piece of tape on here just so it can't slide around while I'm tracing. And I'm going to very gently and very carefully trace this image out here onto my transfer paper. Once I have this transferred out here onto my transfer paper, I'm going to be able to, again, use my tracing paper. I'm going to be able to use my transfer paper to move my image onto my sheet of drawing paper or painting paper. Excuse me. The biggest thing is remember, you need this to fill your piece of paper. So in order for it to fill your piece of paper, you are going to have to get it to fill your Chromebook screen. In order for it to fill your Chromebook screen, the easiest way to do that is to move that into a slideshow. I'm going to continue to trace my image here, making sure that I'm tracing as many details as I need to help me create the painting. So we talked about this when we did the portrait painting, that the quality of my drawing will affect the finished quality of my work as well. And if I don't trace enough, I won't have enough information to accurately paint from. So you do need to make sure that you're tracing carefully and getting everything that you need to make your painting happen. You do also not want to color anything in, right? Everything needs to be like empty sketchbook or empty coloring book style. I just clicked a button on my screen so that you can transfer that. This is your job today, is to trace your photo and transfer it to your watercolor paper so that we're ready to paint tomorrow.